Welcome to My Healing is Your Healing, a podcast for the woman who is ready to stop performing and reclaim her voice. I'm your host, Celeste, and around here, we don't do surface level. We go deep. Each week, we'll explore concepts like self-discovery, radical honesty, and the kind of healing that rewrites your story from the inside out. This is a space for truth-telling, for remembering who you are, and for coming home to yourself, louder, braver, and more radiant than ever. So come as you are, and let's do this together. Let's begin. Welcome back to My Healing is Your Healing. I am your host, Celeste, and today we are unpacking the hidden toll that burnout takes on our bodies and on our minds, and why so many high-achieving women don't recognize that they're burnt out until they've already hit their limits or their rock bottom. Because here's the truth. Burnout does not arrive one morning with flashing lights saying, "Stop, I'm here." No, it slowly creeps in, and it feels like exhaustion that coffee can't fix. It looks like pain that you can't explain. It shows up in endless scrolling and numbing and surviving when all you want to actually be doing is living. And yet so many of us normalize this. We call it just being busy. And I'm guilty of this too. I tell everyone just how busy I am. And we wear exhaustion like it's a badge of honor, as if it's the price of having success. And we keep promising ourselves, I will rest when things slow down, or I'll live my life once I hit that next goal. But the goalpost always seems to be moving, and so you never actually arrive, and this is why we burn out. So here's a question that I want you to sit with. Why are we putting the life that we crave on layaway? Society tells us to move, to keep hustling towards that next milestone. The better job, the bigger paycheck, the right relationship. That shinier version of success. And in chasing all of that, we are not actually living. We're holding our joy hostage until some future moment where we finally give ourselves permission to live, to be present. But the reality is this. If we're lucky, we might get 80 years on this planet. That is not a lot of time. And burning ourselves out in the present, sacrificing our health and peace for the promise of someday, that's not how we create a life that we love. That's how we trade our life away. Burnout is what happens when the pursuit of enough money, enough approval, enough achievement steals our ability to be here now. And here's the kicker. Burnout doesn't just rob us of our energy. It robs us of our self-worth, of self-trust, of presence. And it convinces us that surviving is normal, that exhaustion is noble, and that it is okay for our lives to look good on paper, even if they don't feel good in our bones. I don't buy that. And I don't want you to either, because burnout is not normal. You are not put here to just hustle and then perform and crash. You were meant to live, to thrive, to feel alive in your own skin. And that is why this conversation matters. This is not just about recovery. It is about redefining success itself. And we're going to explore how people-pleasing, imposter syndrome, and the endless chase of being enough fuel that cycle of burnout, and also how to rewrite that script. A script that chooses rest over performance, alignment over hustle, and fulfillment over perfection. Because when you step out of the victim mentality of waiting for your life to begin and instead choose to live it fully, radically, joyfully today, that's when you stop burning yourself out and start becoming the woman that you were always meant to be. So if you've ever felt exhausted, disconnected, or unsure if what you are experiencing is burnout, this episode is for you. You'll walk away with clarity on the signs, the courage to stop normalizing exhaustion, and the tools to begin building a life that doesn't just look good, but actually feels good from the inside out. And to help us go deeper with this conversation, I am joined by Deidre Gestrin, a stress coach, a wellness specialist, and founder of Abundant Wellness Essentials. With over 16 years as a licensed mental health professional and health coach, Deidre has walked through the depths of burnout not once, not twice, but 3 times. And she has emerged with a powerful message. Burnout is not normal, and it doesn't have to be at the cost of your own success. Today, she is going to share her story, including the moment her doctor told her that her job was literally killing her, and what it took to reclaim her energy, her confidence, and her life. So let's dig in. Alrighty. Hello, Deidre. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Celeste?
I am great. I'm super excited to have this conversation with you.
Yes.
All
Me
right.
too.
So let's dig in a little bit here. You are going to be our specialist on burnout today. You've shared that you have walked through burnout not once or twice, but 3 times. Can you take us a little bit more into your story? Like, what did burnout look like for you, and what made you finally realize you couldn't ignore it anymore?
So that's a great question. So it's interesting when I think back and go 3 times really, but it was, right? Because I am one of those who I will just push and push and push. Like no matter what around me or in me is saying you're at your end, right? I just kept pushing. And that's really kind of one of those signs of I didn't feel like I could pause. I felt like I had to keep going at the same pace I was. That was telling me I was at burnout, right? I was starting to question, like, one, why am I doing this? Why am I still trying to push? Um, but it was just that constant, right? I was exhausted. I was really, I was hitting my end. And it kind of comes to like, if I really hone in on that third experience, when I tell you I was working 24/7, take that very literally. I was a manager for a community program, and the community I was in, we also managed our crisis line. So during the day, I was seeing clients. I was doing my management position, right? Managing my program. I was helping try to fix another program. And then middle of the night, if I wasn't looking for kids who ran from our residential program, I was in the ER helping assess crisis because our crisis worker couldn't do 2 or 3 people at one time. So I literally was doing this 24/7. And this went on for 6 months to a year. So when I could sleep, I wasn't sleeping, right? I was exhausted. I actually snapped and said some language to my supervisor that I shouldn't have, but I did. And she took it very gracefully. So I'm very thankful for that. So those were kind of those signs of I was in that burnout. But really, my tipping point was when I went to my doctor for my annual checkup. Now, mind you, I work with a more functional medicine preventative doctor. And I'm going to quote him because it stuck with me. And he said, "Your job is killing you. If you don't do something different, I can't help you." And he closed his folder.
Wow. That's like
I
so
knew it was.
dramatic. Case closed.
It was. And it was just like, oh my gosh. Okay. So that was really kind of my turning point of my burnout. Like I knew those signs, right? I was exhausted. I was questioning what I was doing. I couldn't see that there was a way out. The things that helped me stay grounded, I wasn't doing anymore because I just wanted to try to sleep because I wasn't sleeping. Like I knew those signs, but I couldn't see a way out until that appointment. And then a conversation with a colleague who said, "Deidre, you have FMLA." I never would have connected those two, right? To use FMLA for burnout, but it was the physical health, that the destruction it took on that was my turning point with my last experience. The first two didn't hit that extensive, but that one did. And that's kind of what shifted my my focus and my direction.
That is so heavy. I mean, because the thing is, we've normalized burnout.
We have.
You know, there's a script that tells us if you're not continually moving and going towards something, right, that you're not productive or you're not, a good member of society anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It is so true. And it's still normalized. You talk
Oh,
to leaders and they go, that's not a problem. What are you talking about?
I was supposed to be on a podcast about leadership and burnout. I don't know what happened because they canceled it. I'm sure that they're like, no, it's okay. We're just going to normalize this. And
Yeah.
but yeah, it's to the extent, and I mean, I am even going through it today. Like, I sent you an email right before this, and I'm like, hey, I'm on back to back calls. I'm going to send you the link to this. Just hang tight, right? We don't realize that we're in burnout until we've hit a wall. And like all of the subtle signs we miss completely. I mean, I find myself at night sometimes dragging myself away from the computer at 7 or 8 and then pouring a glass of wine because I can't just do my own thing. I have to numb to be able to go sleep or, function. So why do you think this has become so normalized, like almost expected in our culture?
Well, so my initial perception, and then I'm going to share some new insight I got on a different podcast I was on too, right? Because that really connected the two for me. And so for me, I've always viewed it like we have this societal pressure that, like you said, right? Push, push, push. So if we're not doing, let's say, 5 things at once, we feel like we're failing according to society standards, right? We're always striving. But then you connect to what I was what I was told on another podcast, and that comes from this self-fulfilling greed that's out there too, right? So I kind of see that as a combination because we are comparing ourselves to others. We are always striving to do more or just to keep up so we can pay the bills. But where does that pressure comes from? Either that greed or society's perception. And I think that's why we normalize it. We also, if I look at leaders I've worked for and leaders in corporate America, the leaders don't have boundaries, right? The leaders work 24/7. So then they put that same expectation on those they supervise. It comes down the line. And in all my leadership positions, right? I've had these conversations with not just colleagues, but people I've supervised. What do we do as leaders? We're not good examples. We encourage people to take time off, but do we take it? No.
Never. Or if
Yeah,
you do, like you're constantly checking your Slack or like responding to emails.
we are. We are
It's
all the time.
embarrassing
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
you admit it and you're like, no, it's okay. Don't worry. I'm here.
Well, we do that because we have this drive that says, I don't think I can handle the workload when I come back because nobody's going to pick up the slack while I'm gone. So I'm going to have all the slack I left plus whatever shows up. And we don't think we can handle it. So we'd rather just stay working. And that just comes again back to perception and what we're portraying as leaders.
Ah, it's a double-edged sword. And like the unlimited PTO thing, you're
Yeah.
like, yes, I can take as much vacation as I want. And then you're like, wait, you're giving this to me, but you don't want me to use it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That negative connotation that is attached.
So how do you personally distinguish the difference between just being stressed and being burnt out?
Well, the way I distinguish that is I actually have this way I picture burnout and stress, right? That it's this ladder we climb. So the first rung is we're not stressed, right? Call it our baseline or our homeostasis, where life is good. We might have one thing that comes up and we get stressed and we come back, right? Then that's where we climb one rung to stress and we come back. We should be going up and down. Well, we keep climbing. One stressful event after another puts us into the state of chronic stress, right? So then our nervous system is heightened. We're kind of like, when's the next shoe going to drop? I hear that all the time. I'm waiting. So the longer we sit at that rung of chronic stress, right? Incident after incident, waiting for that next shoe, I'm not calming down. I'm not coming back to my baseline. That's where we start to lean into burnout. And I actually associate it with the rubber band.
Mm.
We can stretch like a rubber band, but we should come back to our baseline, which is our homeostasis. But if I stretch too much, I'm in chronic stress, I'm tipping into burnout. That's when I'm going to hit the end, right? And I might snap. My body snapped when I hit burnout. And my burnout actually went past that into secondary traumatic stress, right? So there's a lot of research that combines burnout, compassion fatigue, and secondary traumatic stress for health providers. I don't. I view them as their own rung in that ladder. And secondary traumatic stress is the worst, and I hit that.
That is something that I never even thought about before, but you have two great analogies that you just gave us. So, can you explain a little bit more about what did you say secondary traumatic stress?
I did.
Okay. Well, explain to me what that is.
Yeah. So secondary traumatic stress is, think of it like PTSD, right? So it's constant trauma, constant like heightened stress. And so for me, I'll just associate it with my story because that'll probably make the most sense. After that state of burnout, right? I was always looking for kids in the middle of the night. I changed jobs, moved states because I thought working in a facility that was locked, so I went to a psych unit, would provide me some boundaries around my time so I could recover. Well, it did not because it was constant stress after stress. So secondary traumatic stress is like I keep hearing people's trauma stories, but then I'm living in my own heightened state. So the symptoms are the same as PTSD, right? I was looking over my shoulder and I did this with family. I'd have to sit against the wall because I didn't even want them behind me. Constantly looking around, like not being able to calm down, not starting to hit a point where who can I trust, right? So really think about it. Secondary traumatic stress happens for people who are constantly hearing trauma stories and trying to help people through them without working through it themselves. And think of it the same as PTSD, if that makes sense.
Mhm. That makes sense. And especially if you're not able to like process what's going on for you and get yourself back down a rung or two or three on your ladder, it's never going to end. That's It's interesting that you say that because you think that by leaving a situation and walking away from it that you're going to leave all your problems behind. I was told this when I left Phoenix to move here. They're like, your problems are going to follow you. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. But until you actually address what's going on for you, it's not going to change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And there's a lot of buzz about the book, The Body Keeps the Score right now,
Mhm.
because it's true, because what you just said is connected to that, right? If we don't deal with it, it's just built up in our bodies and it goes with us. So eventually we do fall apart. We do break. Yeah. So you can leave the situation. I left a situation. Sounds like you did, but we didn't truly deal with it. I didn't truly deal with it, right?
Yeah.
I thought I'd have the time and I didn't. I just treated one stressful situation for another.
Mhm. I mean, whatever it is, a relationship, a job, you, right? If you're not facing the things that you need to learn and heal from, it's always going to be that situation because as soon as you walk into a new job or a new relationship, it is those same things with just a different face. Yeah.
Yes, it absolutely is.
So I want to go back to that conversation that you had with your doctor. You
Mhm.
said that this third burnout nearly destroyed your health and your doctor told you that it was killing you.
Mhm.
What was it like to hear those words? And beyond work, how did that burnout affect your body, your identity, and your sense of self?
Yeah. So it's interesting because it's not easy to hear those words, right? But I knew they were probably coming. because I knew things weren't right because of where I had been 2 years earlier and the progress I was making. I let get destroyed in 6 months to a year. So I knew it wouldn't be a positive visit, but they're still hard to hear, right? Because it goes back to I don't know how I don't know how to change to get out of this, right? I don't know how to change, which comes to that identity and that self-worth. Like I was wrapped up in my job, right? That was majority of the identity I was living.
Hmm.
And so I had to rely on a colleague who was also a friend who pointed out what I could do, right? I would not have made that connection without that support to
That's
pull back
incredible.
at time.
Yeah. Okay. So you took the time.
I did. I think I took 3 months.
Okay.
I wish I had done more, but I think it was 3 months. Or this was back in 2018 when
Okay.
this all came to a head. So I did. I took 3 months. I was in such a bad place that my supervisor said, "So when do you want your FMLA to start?" I said, "Tomorrow." And I started it. I was not going to plan it, which not the smartest move, I will say, right? When I'm helping other people, probably left them feeling abandoned. So I recognize that and might change that. But I did. So I took 3 months and I didn't do anything. I didn't go anywhere. I sat on my couch most of that time, right? I was flatlined. I was exhausted. I physically was struggling. And so I had to take that time to reflect and go, something has to change, but what? Right. And that I know is connected to your question of self worth because I truly, really loved the town I was living at this time. I had a community and I enjoyed my job for the most part. But as I reflected, right, I had been speaking for what I wanted, what I needed, I should say. I had been telling my supervisor what I needed for at least 3 to 6 of those months. And finally, that's what I realized I had to leave, right? I also had that that intuition within myself after that doctor appointment that said, "You're done in this town. It's time to move on." I had to listen to that, right? To get back to my self-worth and trusting myself. I had to listen at that point because I knew nothing would change if I just went back to work. It wasn't going to be possible.
Yeah. And especially when you're in that state, right? You have left your intuition screaming for so long because it can't get your attention that you really do, when it does speak up, you have to listen to it.
You do 100%. And it was hard because like I said, I had a community. I loved the town I was living in and I loved the people I worked with, but at what cost? Right? That's what it came down to for me. And I knew if I kept going, I would not be able to work anymore. That's where it was I had to listen. I should have listened 6 months earlier. When I wasn't being heard, I should have done something.
Did you give yourself grace in that space when you recognized in hindsight that you should have done that?
I did, because I also recognized, you know, in that time period, I would have struggled to figure out where to go, what to do, right? Because a lot of us, if our identity is wrapped up in our job, that is wrapped up in our financial stability.
Yeah.
And I think we hold on too long because we go, but can I financially make a change? Right? That's where I was at. Could I financially manage through a transition and know I was going to get stable again at the same level I was? That's part of what made it hard to listen earlier.
I mean, like we talk about, it's the devil that you know, right? Like
It is.
You're stuck in this comfort zone of, even if it's this uncomfortable place, you know exactly what to expect. And if you were to take a leap of faith or to jump or to make a change, you have no idea what that landscape looks like. And it is easier to trust the shit you're going through right now than to go.
Yes, absolutely. It is, because the unknown is scarier for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Until you like hit the wall running and you just like almost knock yourself out, right? Or tell you that you're going to die.
Yep.
Basically, do you make that change?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we just talked a little bit about the turning point in your recovery. What did rebuilding look like in those first few fragile steps? Like going from barely able to walk to reclaiming your energy in your life?
That's a great question. So, um, for me, that I ended up in a space where I didn't have to work. So I do recognize for a lot of people that's possibly not the case, right? Because the job I changed to lasted 6 months before it closed. So for me, that was a blessing for where I'd gotten. And so that's part of, like, I really want people to not get where I was, right? That's why I'm on this mission. Um, but the recovery for me was really reconnecting to and listening to my body, right? So yes, I couldn't walk 100 feet. I couldn't stand for 10 minutes. That was the worst that I'd hit. I was determined, and I'm a very determined person, right? That I wasn't going to stay there. So it was it was small goals. I am a believer in small doable changes because they have a longer impact. And so that recovery process was every day I would walk, right? So that 100 feet wasn't even halfway down my driveway where I'm at now. So that was my goal. And every time, like, if I get to the end of the driveway, that was my first goal. And I would not move past it until that was easy, until physically I could do that without a lot of pain.
Mm.
I, if I needed to sleep and nap, I did, right? I really focused on my nutrition. So it was coming back to, what can I do today? Right? I don't have to not, I did have to think about a job because of unemployment, right? And the rules. But for the most part, I could push that off for 3 months. I could jump through the hoops, but I could really focus on myself. So you have to learn to listen to what your body's saying and push it a little, but not overdo it. So that's what I did. Short walks until it got easier. And over time, I built up to 2 miles.
I love this. I love this. So, how did you begin to rebuild that self worth and that trust in yourself after burnout? What practices or mindsets supported you as you were going through these micro goals?
So I had to really explore, why did I let myself get there? I had to ask the hard questions, right? Because I had to know where I let myself get to know where to get back to. And so it was recognizing, for me, it was exploring certain things that impacted that, right? Exploring my attachment style. I explored my Enneagram number and how those played into it. And it was looking at, okay, that's not okay, right? I let myself do that because I was the people pleaser. I was the yes lady at work, right? Something needed done. I'll do it. Should I have said that? No. But let's face it, there's a lot of us that do that for multiple reasons, right? One, somebody has to do it. Also, sometimes it's easier if I just do it because then I don't have to fix it later. Um, but I also recognize that some of that yes was because that's how I felt worth it and I felt wanted.
Mm.
So I had to work through that and kind of repair that to go, my worth can't always be about my work, right? Because at that time, I also came back and have been helping families. So now I have this dual pool, but that also helped me keep balance. But I had to explore those questions. Why did I let it? Because we can blame leaders and organizations because they do have a part. I, as an individual employee, had a part, and we have to recognize that individual part.
Love how much this actually like plays well with jobs, but also relationships. Because, you are realizing that it is not just that thing on an island. There are two major components to each thing, right? It's the company and it's also you. And you are having to make your own decisions. But also recognize when you're in the wrong or when you've had a fault. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a
And
really good segue into the redefining success portion of this, right?
uh,
Um, because before you were driving yourself towards these outcomes, achievements, perfection, enough, right?
yeah.
What does success look like for you now?
Well, that's a great question. And I do want to start with saying I think we're always striving for success because we have to have goals to keep us moving forward, right?
Mhm.
We have to have some purpose. But success now is, I think, tied to what I believe my balance is in life. And that's not always the same. So I can't say success is always the same, right? In this current season, it influencing people to not get to where I was, right? It's sharing the message that if we don't change this norm, we will have people who can't work, period, or they're not going to be alive. Like, that's just the reality. And so for me, success is, am I doing that? Am I working towards that, right? Am I giving to the people I work with on a daily basis? And then am I doing what I'm supposed to be supporting my family? Because that's my other current focus at the moment. And so I just have to accept also that each season it will shift a little bit, right? So defining it in each season because it will not be constant.
I love the way that you put that, right? It's the seasons of it because as you grow and learn more about yourself and what you're doing and how life transitions, that concept is always going to evolve. It's never going to be just one goalpost. It's always going to be morphing and you're going to be leading maybe in an entirely different direction, right?
Right. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. It's always changing, right? Life changes, family circumstances change. We have to adapt.
Yeah. So, how do you help your clients now create lives that they truly love without sacrificing themselves to burnout?
That's a great question. I really believe that we have to spend some time and get to know ourselves a little bit, right? Really making sure that we have this internal focus as well as the external one. We sometimes focus so much on the external, we don't recognize those signs within ourselves that something's got to change. So I help them reconnect to that, right? Listening to their body, listening to what's going on inside, and then working on those shifts. So I work on the same things I did. Let's change and make some micro shifts, right? I believe in small changes, and that's what I help people do. So I'm a huge advocate, and part of my program is one, let's make sure you're sleeping because our brains recover just as our bodies do when we sleep. And that's often one of the first things we go, I'll sleep when I'm dead, right? Well, you might land there sooner than you want with that thought. So I work on these small tweaks, right? These micro breaks, the sleep. And so mindset is a huge part of that. And then if we talk about balance, right? It's let's create what that looks like for you. So it's really kind of an individual plan because I really want to see people thrive in what they feel called to do. And I don't want to see them with the physical issues I had. It's a bad
Yeah,
place to be.
that makes complete sense. And yeah, everyone's going to be a little different. What's always the interesting thing to me is like you always expect people are going to learn like me, right? And there's just such a large spectrum. So what worked for you might not work. And that's the really interesting place about self-discovery is there are millions of books, millions of podcasts, all of these different tools, and you just kind of have to play with each of them until you figure out what works.
You do. You absolutely do. And I will say that while there's an individual component, there are a couple of things I have found that are pretty consistent from one person to the next. And the responses are usually I get pushback for a few weeks. And then when they finally decide to try it, I get the, all right, you were right. Right. And it's not about I don't want to be right. It's about I want you to succeed. So let's talk about the foundations that work and then let's individualize from there because we have to find what works. And I get a lot of people that go, but Deidre, I want you to hand me this elaborate plan. Guess what? We're not going to do an elaborate plan. That is too much. That overwhelms us. So
But
we
they're so
start,
used to it, right?
they are. And I'm like, I'm going to give you one or two things to work on. And that is it. Like, we're going to identify that. And until that works, or you come back and say, I tried it and it doesn't, then we'll add to it. But we can't do an elaborate plan. We overload ourselves more. But it's what we want.
You know, because you're so used. You're like, give me all the things, keep me occupied.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's so funny. Okay. You talk about valuing mental, emotional, and physical healing as one. What does it look like in everyday practice when someone is truly living from a place of wholeness instead of hustle?
Mm. What I see that as is one, do you have things built into your day that we might call self-care, but they also keep you grounded in who you are, right? And so it's moving through the day with intention versus just I have to try to get through this whole list, right? Because intention means I'm going to pick what I absolutely want or need to focus on today, and everything else is out of my view and another day. So that whole person, right? Again, comes back to, am I also in touch with what's going on in my body? And am I giving that to it throughout the day? So, for example, I sit in my chair and at my desk probably 10, 11-hour days. I'm not burnt out. And some people will think I am, but it's because I know myself, right? If I feel like I'm starting to get exhausted or fatigued, I cut back, I create space, I get up and move every hour. I take an hour away from my computer if I can, right? So I've created these intentions so I can focus on my physical health. I'm getting that movement in every day. I'm recognizing how I'm feeling, right? But if we're not building in those practices that ground us every day, we're not going to have that holistic approach and intentionality in our day.
I love that. The word intention. And what it was making me think of the entire time was being present. Because in that whole burnout scheme, right? Like you are not paying attention to what you're doing. You are just paying attention to your calendar and how much can I get done.
Right.
And so
Yep.
when you're saying like, I'm paying attention to my body, I'm paying attention to how I'm feeling, like that is sitting in presence and being there listening to yourself.
Yeah, 100%. It's so important to the journey and to life.
How do you get people to recognize that they're not being present?
Well, I think it's funny. A lot of people actually know that.
Okay.
They already know it, right?
Yeah.
It's, I can't be present in my kid's game or I have to doodle just to focus in a meeting. So it's really paying attention to how they describe it because they do know it, right? And helping reframe when you're doodling to pay attention, you're not present. Now, I will say that with the exception of some people who truly have, say, ADHD, they have to fidget to listen, right? So coming from a mental health background, it's being able to decipher some of that, but it's also helping people explore what would it be like to be fully present? What might that feel like? Right. So we can reconnect to that. But really, I think that also comes back to if we're trying to do multiple things at once, we are not fully present. It's just not possible.
Like that. And it's just definitely something that you have to like practice on a daily basis or put a note. Be present, focus, whatever it is.
Yes, absolutely. And it's clearing your space, right? If you have too much on your space, you're probably not going to be fully present. So we just, it's exploring a lot of that, right? Exploring not just internally, but environmentally. Environment affects a lot of things that we're not necessarily recognizing.
You're going to make me clean my desk after this then. Thank you.
Helps.
All right. So our final question today. And by the way, I love that you picked a Helen Keller quote to live by. And that is, life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. How do you embody that truth now without burning yourself out in the process?
I would say for me, it's kind of twofold, right? So when I'm drawn to that quote, I think about conversations I've had with friends before about I'm one of those people, I will uproot and move somewhere I know nobody and I've never been. That is a fun adventure for me, right? But on a day-to-day basis, I think it's finding the joy in the things around, right? I live in a small mountain town and I go for walks down the dirt road. Who knows what I'm going to see, right? But it's being able to be in that state of gratitude and what can I focus on today, right? How can I help somebody? Like there's adventure in anything. We just have to look for it. So getting out of that negative mindset, right? And looking at that positive of, oh, it was kind of fun today, right? Or what is, I think it's just a matter of it's that mindset. It's how we approach each day, right? So I can look at it as a negative, which is what going to yank me down, or I can go, that was kind of cool. Didn't expect that. So I think it's just, again, it comes back to those small moments, those little things that you're looking for throughout the day.
I love that. Ties back to presence, the curiosity aspect. Yeah.
Yes. Love being curious.
Me too. Yeah. It's what gets me up in the morning if I wonder what's going to happen today.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So finally, where can listeners connect with you and learn more about your work?
Yeah. So you can find me, my website, abundantwellnessessentials.com. I have free resources there. One is actually called Stress to Peace. Just to help I love giving people quick wins because when we have quick wins, we keep going. So yeah, definitely reach out to me on my website. You can just also /consult if you want to just chat, figure out what's going on and a small tweak you can make. I am also all over social media, either under my business name or I think some places it's Deidre Gestrin and others it's D Gestrin. I'm everywhere.
Amazing. Well, I will post all of those links at the bottom of the description. And it was really, really nice to talk to you. Thank you for bringing more presence into my day.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been a fun conversation.
Amazing. Okay, wow. I feel like that Helen Keller quote that Deidre shared, life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all, really landed for me. Because if you think about it, like we talked about at the beginning, we might only get 80 years on this planet, if we're lucky. And I don't want to spend them burnt out, exhausted, or disconnected from myself. And I'll be honest, this one hits close to home. I am building a business. I am running a podcast, working a full-time job, writing a book, preparing speeches. And sometimes I realize that there are stretches of my day where I can't even remember what has happened. I'm just cramming and numbing and scrolling and surviving. And burnout is real. And it's sneaky. And it comes back if we don't keep an eye out for it. So here's what I want to leave you with today. Burnout is not normal, no matter how much the world tries to convince us otherwise. Your body, your energy, your joy all matter. You deserve a life that feels good on the inside as much as it looks good on the outside. So if today's conversation resonated, head to my website, download the energy tracker, and start noticing what fuels you and what drains you. Share this episode with a friend who might need the reminder that burnout isn't supposed to be at the cost of success. And if you'd like to tell your own story on this podcast, or there's a topic that you'd love to hear me unpack, reach out to me on my website or on Instagram. Until next time, keep showing up. keep growing. And remember, you were never meant to dim your light. Thanks for tuning in and being here, for healing out loud, and for walking this path beside me. If this episode cracked something open or helped you remember a part of yourself, pass it on and share it with someone you love. For more support, free resources, or the next steps to your journey, head over to my website, myhealingisyourhealing.com. And if you loved today's conversation, subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your words help this space grow and help more women find their way home to themselves. If I was your muse today, then my healing is your healing. Until next time.